Namaste, Dr. Rajan.
Namaste, Kumar.
Namaste.
Namaste.
It's 6 o'clock, so we will start. The way I'm sure there are a few more people who will join in. So, namaste to all of you.
Namaste.
Welcome.
Namaste.
Namo Namaha, wherever you are. I am very, very pleased and happy to see Dr. Rajan joining the session this morning with us. I think all of you know him, so there is no big introduction that I have to give, excepting that I want to say that a wonderful yogi is with us this morning. So on that note, I'm going to pass it on to Dr. Rajan. He will answer whatever questions you have in chapter 1 and whatever you have covered in chapter 2. Maybe we have done only about 5 or 6 sutras. Or any other question that you may have in general, but related to this subject. Originally, my plan was slightly different, but later on, because I saw a few questions coming in yesterday, I said, with the questions in the mind, it may not be a great idea to go into the sutras right away. So, Dr. Rajan, you please take over and answer their questions. My sister Lakshmi was the one who sent the first question. So the opportunity goes to her first, after Dr. Rajan gives the whatever he wants to say upfront. Thank you, Dr. Rajan. Namaste.
Namaskaram. I don't have to say anything. Please ask the question.
Namaste, Dr. Rajan.
Namaste.
My question is, if the divine connectivity can happen during deep sleep, if for some reason or no reason, if it happens to me, how would I know that I am connected? And also, the sutras 113, 114 would be of any help to attain that state.
So when you're talking of sutras 113, 114, you're talking of Tatra sthitau yatnaha abhyasaha satu dirghkala nairantarya satkaro sevito dridhabhumi. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, yes, doctor.
Okay. So so coming back to your question, okay. Coming back to your question, the answer is, if you have some question that is there in your mind, some inquiry, and you wake up in the morning one day and you find you know the answer, that has happened to you?
I haven't noticed that.
You have not noticed that. Okay. So when that happens to you, that is when you know that you had the connectivity at night in a conscious way in which you're trying to establish. But in the unconscious way, it is always there, is that is the source of the immunity strength in the body. So when you feel refreshed, when you feel good, when you have the ability to take on, you get exposed to so many things, but you remain unaffected. All of that is what is the unconscious nature of the connectivity that has happened in deep sleep. So
Okay.
now coming back to the question of the 13 and 14 over here, all it is saying is that regular practice of being a person who is unaffected by things around you will lead you to the state where you're able to experience the higher nature of existence. So the key part is, when we spend a little bit of time each day, half an hour in the morning, half an hour in the evening, where we stay in that meditative quietness and we don't let other thoughts work in a way where you're reacting. Of course, anytime you're sitting down and eyes closed, thoughts may come, but you don't let the thoughts bother you. You let it come and let it go. So this way of training yourself not to be reactive is the only way in which you can make sure that that nature becomes part of you. If you don't do it on a regular basis, of course, from a yoga perspective, our spiritual entity stands on three legs. One is what is called Atma Vidya, the other is our cosmic connectivity, and the third one is the amount of klesha karmas, or the amount of programs you have within you. Now what happens is, the lesser the amount of programs in you, higher will be your connectivity. And higher the connectivity, if you have more inquiries, more questions to ask, slowly in that connectivity, as the questions get answered, your Atma Vidya will increase. So when the Atma Vidya is at a high level, automatically that means the reactivity will be less, so the karma klesha will be less, and the potential for the connectivity will be high. When I say potential for the connectivity to be high, the connectivity will be high only if you seek to keep it that way and you stay in the path of Dharma. Dharma means being in sync with the cosmic flow in whatever you're doing. If one goes in the adharmic side, the cosmos can cut off your connectivity, even though you might have a high level of Atma Vidya. So higher the level of Atma Vidya and higher level of connectivity, less likely to be reactive. Now, if the higher level of Atma Vidya is there, automatically potential for higher connectivity is there. So all of these hang together. So obviously, by practicing to be a pure observer, reactivity reduces, as a result of which the karmas and kleshas begin to reduce. And as they begin to reduce, connectivity increases more. And in that connectivity, you have to inquire. Unless you inquire, you will not expand your Atma Vidya. And it is very interesting. It is in the Vedantic side, it is often said you have to be a mumukshu. That is a person who is a seeker. Unless you seek, you will not get. So you have to ask the question. And similarly, in the yogic side, the whole chapter 3 of the Yoga Sutra that talks about samyama is based upon inquiry that leads to higher level of innate knowledge or Atma Vidya, higher level of awareness. And this, of course, in the first chapter is expressed in Sutra number 17. That is, you reach the state of samprajnata, that is knowing everything. How? By the four-step process, which in the first chapter being a summary overview or an introductory summary, it is basically describing the samyama process that is given in more detail in chapter 3. So vitarka is questioning, vichara is contemplation, ananda is all about letting it go. And in that ananda state of letting go, the samadhi state of connectivity happens. And in the state of asmita, being able to receive the response back, out of that is the state, how you become a person who becomes fully wise, whereby it all comes to you and you're able to have a high level of Atma Vidya in this process. So I guess I've made a number of things. The daily practice or the regular practice is important. Why? To reduce the karma kleshas within you. And that process will enable higher connectivity. And that higher connectivity, along with inquiry, will lead to expanded Atma Vidya. And higher the Atma Vidya, less reactive, greater the connectivity potential. So they are all connected. So did I answer your question?
Very well explained, Doctor. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You have any follow-up question, Akka?
Yeah.
You have a follow-up question?
Follow-up is a different question. I will ask it later. Or?
You can ask. Go ahead.
Is Samadhi state considered much elevated to Samapati state, Doctor?
Definitely. You see, Samapati is only engrossment. Samadhi is where you are able to imbibe that intuitive knowledge of whatever question you have asked. In the case of Samapati, you don't necessarily have the intuitive knowledge coming in. Now, in the first chapter, in the part where Samapati and Samadhi is discussed, in that first chapter, the distinction is made between Savitarka Samapati, Nirvitarka Samapati, and then the Sabija Samadhi state. And what is the key distinction? When you have Savitarka Samapati, your focus is somewhere external. It is not something subtle in the cosmic domain. And actually, there are so many different ways to describe the Savitarka Samapati. And the Nirvitarka Samapati is a very slight twist of the Savitarka Samapati, but it is still in the focus is the external domain. And so let me give you a few examples. Now, some of you may have experienced that you're reading something or writing something, you're so fully engrossed in it that the bell rings or the phone rings, somebody calls you from behind, you're completely oblivious to it. Because your senses have fully gotten engrossed within it. All your senses, right? So that is the kind of engrossment that we call as Samapati. Now, within the Samapatti, there are two categories that are, identified. Like I give an example which some people have experienced, and I have myself experienced many years back, is like, for example, these days, of course, many people are working from home, but when people need to commute to their offices to go and work, now, usually for people on weekends, it's the day off, so they don't go to work. But what happens is, one weekend you have to go somewhere where you have to go other than work. So in the morning, about the same time when you step out to work, you step out, enter your car. And without realizing, you end up outside your office, and then you realize, no, I was not meant to come over here. So the thing is, what happens is, when you do that, what happens is, when you also reflect in terms of your daily commute to work, if we asked a person, was this traffic light green or red when you crossed? How did you go? In fact, what will happen is, most people won't even have any recollection of it. Because they're doing this on a regular basis, they become so engrossed in it, it is like automated. You're not even aware you're doing it because you're fully engrossed within it. So this nature, where you have a sense of intent that is there, you're going to the workplace or whatever, that intent, when the intent is present, that is what is called Savitarka Samapatti, but you have become fully engrossed in it. When the intent also disappears and you're in a zone where it is no longer clear what is happening, except you are there, but the intention is no longer clear, you're letting whatever come to you. That is the state of the Nirvitarka. In other words, there is no logical sense in it anymore. Whereas the Savitarka, there is a logical sense over there, this is what you're going to do. Whereas in the Nirvitarka, that logical sense is no longer there. And now, the reason Samapatti is brought is, it is very unfortunate that there are many commentaries on the Yoga Sutras where they consider Samapatti as a level of Samadhi. And that is a mistake. In fact, actually what happens is, one of the most surprising experience I had was when I used to be the education coordinator in our temple some 15 years back. There was a Swamiji who had come over there, and it was my job as the education coordinator to introduce him for the program, where there was an audience sitting over there. And when he knew that I was the one who was leading the yoga sessions over there and the meditation, all of that, so he kind of, in his opening remarks, he asked the question, what is meditation? What is Samadhi? When you close your eyes and everything is blank, that is Samadhi. When he made that statement, I was absolutely shocked, because the nature of Samadhi, right in the Yoga Sutra, when in the Sabija Samadhi state, it is described, Ritambhara Tatra Prajna. In other words, you are able to connect. Prajna means your intuitive knowledge that is connected into cosmic knowledge. And it is part of the cosmic system. Ritambhara, filled in the cosmic system, the flow of cosmos. Rita is the cosmic flow. So connected into the cosmic flow, you get the cosmic wisdom that comes from there. Now, unless that happens, unless the connectivity happens, shutting out is one thing and connectivity happening is a different state. And this is what is clearly established in the 3rd chapter, where Patanjali Muni, when he describes the nature of progression of the Samyama into Samadhi, he explains the concept of 3 parinamas, where there is no longer, where you are on that complete blank stage, no longer mind wandering. That is the state that is called Nirodha Parinama. From the Nirodha Parinama, there is the state that arises where you make the connectivity. That connectivity that comes after the mind has stopped wandering, there is blankness in the mind, that is called Samadhi Parinama. And out of the Samadhi Parinama, the third Parinama is where your questions get answered. That is the Eka Grata Parinama. So this is, these three together that is explained, gives you a high degree of understanding about the nature of Samadhi. Now what happens is, obviously, when you're in a Samapati state in full engrossment, you are connected into whatever you're dealing with in the physical world. When you're connected with what you're dealing with in the physical world, it is not the same as cosmic connectivity. And so that is the big distinction between Samapati and the Samadhi state. Is that okay?
Yeah, very well explained. Thank you, Doctor.
You're
Thank you so much.
Uma, you want to go? You want to go ask your questions? Please go ahead.
Okay, Kumarji. Namaste, Dr. Rajan.
Namaste.
I was thinking about Asmita, that Patanjali Muni has told earlier that we should be an observer in what we do, but later he classified it under the kleshas. Why did he do so? Like,
See, a klesha is simply a program entity within you, right? Now, we need to understand the nature of chitta in order to understand how the kleshas work through the chitta. The chitta is the operating system of who we are, right? It is a programming system. And what does the chitta do? It takes input and it throws out an output based upon whatever programs are all contained in there, within the program system. The operating system itself is only a system where it takes input and throws out output, right? Whereas on the other hand, the input, if it is being processed through some software which wants the input to be manipulated in a certain way, that is, software is the program, the operating system facilitates the program to work through it, right? So now what happens is, the chitta itself has no intent of its own, but the chitta contains the operating system has various programs that are sitting within it. And what are those programs? The 5 kleshas. And the 5 kleshas are the avidya, raga, dvesha, and then of course asmita and abhinivesha. The best way to understand this is, now if asmita, now Patanjali Muni is clear in mentioning that high in the hierarchy of all the kleshas is the avidya. If avidya is not there, the other kleshas don't have a leg to stand on. Because avidya means, avidya going away means you have complete vidya, which means you have complete atma jnana, which means you have complete cosmic wisdom. If you have complete cosmic wisdom, then in which case the concept of raga dvesha, that is attractions and aversions, no longer affect you because you see them as maya. And then the sense of abhinivesha, me as the doer. The me as the doer doesn't exist because you understand you're only an instrument of the cosmic flow. Now, another program within the entity of the chitta is the asmita. Asmita is actually quite benign. Asmita only senses everything. Now, once Asmita goes away, which means the entire chitta and the soul is completely dissolved in moksha, right? Liberated. When it is completely dissolved, it cannot sense anything. In fact, what happens is, in order to experience the samprajñata state, you have to have asmita. If you don't have asmita, you cannot even experience the intuitive awareness that is coming from your samadhi state. Right? So, asmita is only a program entity, the ability to sense. So, the concept of klesha is, in fact, I don't even know whether you're aware that in the philosophical sense, you have heard of the word Shri, right, Uma?
Right, Dr. Rajan.
What does Shri
Yes.
mean?
I thought it was what to say. It's like a honor title or something, like not title. What?
Way of addressing.
Way of addressing, yes.
Okay.
Like,
have you heard of anything called Shri Vidya?
yes.
What is Shri Vidya?
Vidya is knowledge, and Shri must be like greater knowledge, or
Okay. See, Shri Vidya is considered the knowledge of creation. Okay. The word Shri is associated with Shakti or with the concept of the Prakriti from a yoga perspective. So the process of creation and all of that is considered Shri Vidya. Right? And so we are all created beings. That is why you can add the Shri in front of you. Right? So now, in fact, what happens is, in lot of Vedic chantings and things like that, you will always ask that let your life be with Shriyam. In other words, Shriyam me bhajatu priyam, things like that will come. In other words, let there be Shriyam in your life, right? Which means the concept of let everything be fulfilling in your life, right? Anybody, have you heard of that as the use of the word Shri? Uma?
no, Dr. Rajan, no, I haven't.
Okay. So you have not heard that the thing is you want the life to be with Shriyam.
No, I have not heard that.
Okay,
Anybody
no problem. So the thing is, basically, what happens is, while the Shri in many ways is considered like blessings, how many people here think Shri is blessings? Something good. Okay, wonderful. So the thing is, you see, what happens is, in the philosophical sense, Shri has another meaning. It is considered poison. Any of you ever heard Shri as a meaning of poison?
No.
No, you have not. Because what it is Shri can only manifest when the Rajoguna of creation comes and creation takes place. As long as there is no change, there is no creation taking place. And so the change that comes because of activation of the gunas, particularly the Rajoguna, and as a result the Tamoguna will come. Otherwise the unchanging state is called the Sattva state. So what happens is, now anytime creation takes place, creation is considered a deviance from the unchanging state, and the deviance can only happen because of descending from a higher level to a lower level. So that descending from the higher level to the lower level is considered, it is because of the programs activating and happening. So it is in that same way, as long as the sense of the created is there, that program entity of the created is a blemish. Once there is moksha, there is no program whatsoever, right? So it is in that sense, asmita is a klesha. I gave a long answer over here, Uma, and I gave you various this thing. Is this helpful?
Yes, Dr. Rajan.
But I don't feel convinced you agree.
um,
Okay, let me come back over here. You see, what happens is, think of a computing system with everything wiped out, all the programs wiped out in it except the operating system, right? Then the computer cannot do anything. Unless you feed software into it, the computer is a useless piece of hardware, right? So anytime hardware is, anytime a new software is put into the operating system, then it has ability to do. So ability to do is a descent from the state of unchanging state. From unchanging, ability to do means you can change, you can do new things. That it is in that sense, it's a descent from the highest lower down. And so that is how the concept of asmita, even me who exists itself, is a descent from the higher state where even you don't exist, you're only Maya.
I think that confusion also comes from the fact that when we say a person is highly creative, we always think from a lower level he has gone to a higher level in terms of thinking, in terms of expression. So now what you're saying is the other way around.
So you see, what is very interesting is when you look at different philosophies, the ability to think and ability to ask questions itself is considered higher than a normal human being. Whereas on the other hand, when you have fully found all the answers and you realize everything is Maya, then all of that becomes meaningless.
We'll see that in chapter 4.
So Uma, you need to do more meditation.
Thank you, Dr. Rajan. Yes, I need to. I don't do it at all.
Okay. Any other questions?
Good morning, Dr. Narayan. I have
Good
one.
morning,
It's more around when you are explaining the process of the different samadhis, and also, it came to me when I recently read a book, the autobiography of a yogi. There were a lot of stories there. One thing that stood out was some fakir or a Muslim who runs into like an enlightened or a elevated person or with a deeper connectivity, gets like a siddhi, something that he could make things disappear. And he would say, do you have a long, he sees that fakir, or that's how they call him. Long story short, the way I was wondering is it more for a reality that someone could share these type of things to someone, and then obviously that's where it hit me when you were talking about you have the connectivity and then you do other things, it gets taken away. In that book, it goes through that phase where he does things and then it gets taken away. After that, he really gets into meditative and enlightened in the end. So that I just want to get your what do you think? Is that some physically or a real story, or it is more for like a story that we, people render for these type of things?
It is likely a real story, but the key part is even in the Yoga Sutra, there is a mention of how you can disappear.
Right.
Okay, so it is all about how you channelize the flow of light, and it's a cloaking technology, right? And
Okay.
so this part is something that is also described. So yes, it is entirely possible.
And the ability to give that to someone else, that's where I got stuck. Is that even, because I know Yoga Sutra talks about, see, this is something that you
you're
are
talking
born with.
about whether you can pass on this ability to another person.
Yes, yes.
See, are you talking of permanently transferring to the other person or temporarily having the other person experience?
The way, at least it was quoted in the book, is he gives that ability. So I'm thinking if he would have done it in a dharmic way, it would have stayed with him for his life. But then later on, he runs into that yogi again and he takes it away. That's how it is.
I
shared.
see. The part is basically the best way in which I can, relate this to you is, from the Mahabharata, right? That Vyasa Muni, Dhritarashtra wants to see what is happening in the war, right? And so Vyasa Muni offers him, I will give you divine sight whereby you can see what is going on over there, right? Then he says, no, I'm blind, let me remain blind. And so he asks, so he says, give that ability to Sanjaya. So Sanjaya is the one who is relating to Dhritarashtra, what he is seeing the battlefield over there, right?
Yeah.
So the thing is basically, I think there is enough evidence of all of these things. In fact, what happens is the ability for people to have temporary siddhis for specific this thing. There are many, many examples that are there, and I have also witnessed, so it is very much possible.
Okay.
Now, the only way in which you can permanently give it to someone is if the person is at a level that is known as pradhana. In in the Yoga Sutra, in the 3rd chapter, when you are in the level of pradhana, you can control the nature of prakriti, then in which case you can give that ability to someone else.
Thank you.
So that means the person has to be in a certain level of purity. Is that what you're saying?
Actually, it's not certain level of purity alone. With that purity, the person needs to be able to imbibe the Atma Vidya by asking questions and have a high level of Atma Vidya. Only then the person can transfer it to someone else.
So the receiver also must be in a very high state of Atma Vidya?
Actually, what happens is, when a person is in a very, very high level, they can even take away the karmas of the other person and purify them instantly.
Oh.
And by doing that, what they end up doing is they take on the karma of the other person. And when a person takes on the karma of another person, if the person who takes it on has enough Atma Vidya and purity whereby they can burn off the karmas, then it doesn't bother them. So, but on the other hand, if they are unable to fully process it out, it will impact them negatively. In fact, there are 2 ways in which you can understand this. You see, when somebody passes away, when you actually give offerings to the people who come to do the after the departed services, people who are in the traditional Vedic system, the Brahmins whom you feed and all of that, this thing, they are supposed to take the karmas of the soul that may be remaining so that the soul can get moksha. And so that is the reason everybody will not go and take that. And the special type of people who take it, they're supposed to do certain amount of meditative practice to expel the karma out of their system. And this is the reason what happens is, even within regular priests, if they do any services related to the departed, they are required to do certain amount of meditation, and on that day they will not come into the temple or any other sacred place. They'll be only doing meditation. They'll only come the next day. Now, another way in which for you to understand is, many of you know from the Indian tradition the story of Vishwamitra. Vishwamitra used his power to violate the nature by sending this person called Trishanku, this king, into to leave to enter, as they say, heaven in his whole body, and that was against nature. And so since he was going against nature, and it was cosmically, it was adharmic, creating this thing. So Vishwamitra's all his abilities went away, and he had to go and do more meditation and purification before he could have additional abilities. So that is the way we should understand that how this karmadana and ability to bestow things upon people, that if they don't have the capacity, you can purify people by taking on their karmas.
So, feel free to ask questions. So go ahead. Whoever has questions, please go ahead and ask.
Can I ask a question, Kumarji?
Of course.
Is the state of Samadhi the one that humans should aspire for, or is there something more than the state of Samadhi?
See, you're asking two questions here which are separate. One question you're asking is whether you should, as a human being, aspire for Samadhi. Second question you're asking is there something higher than Samadhi? Right? So the key part is, as a human being, the moment, it doesn't matter where the person is. As you're going through life, where you go through ups and downs of life, and there'll be moments in life when you will end up asking, why is this happening to me? Have you ever asked that question to yourself, Uma?
Yes, many times. Not
Exactly.
nowadays, but when I was much younger.
Yes. So the moment you ask, why is this happening to me? You're trying to ask, you're actually aspiring towards Samadhi. Samadhi is that cosmic connectivity which gives that wisdom, right? So the conspiracy of existence is that every human being at some point in time will always ask that question and will aspire towards Samadhi, right? So that is the first part of the question that you asked for. The second question you asked is there anything higher than Samadhi? Well, the higher than Samadhi is, if being in Samadhi itself doesn't ensure you have the highest level of Atma Vidya and the realization that you're only an instrument of the cosmic flow, right? You can remain connected means you will be intuitively guided. But on the other hand, unless you ask questions, you will not get the answer, and you will not increase your Atma Vidya or your innate knowledge base, right? So in this, and of course, as you see right from the Yoga Sutras, there are 2 levels of samadhi that are described in the first chapter, and in later chapters you will find that there are even more finer distinctions. The most important thing to understand is, by momentary cleansing of your, or momentary cessation of all the programs that are running within you, you can be in that connectivity state. And the example of that is deep sleep. In your deep sleep, all your thoughts, everything are gone. So in which case, that cosmic connectivity automatically happens, but you're not aware of it. But when you are able to stop all the activation of the programs within you and just be quiet and being able to be an observer, of course, when we say all the programs, means all the voluntary programs. There are involuntary programs that are running within you that makes you breathe and your heart pump and all of that. All the programs that run within you, even when you are in deep sleep, those can stay as it is. But then you're as if in deep sleep, except that now you're not unaware. You're aware as if you were awake, but you're not yet, but you're not engaging with the world outside. So in that state, you're only having the connectivity. So that is a temporary state of that connectivity when you can induce that quietness. Now what happens is, as you slowly dissipate the programs within you, that dissipation process is what is called purification. So all the likes, dislikes, and everything you have in your mind working, everything gets cleaned out of your system, so that you're able to be a pure observer all the time. You don't have to make an effort to do that. You don't have to induce yourself. You don't have to close your eyes and be in meditation to reach that. All the time you're like that, even when your eyes are open and you're walking around. That is the state where all the programs within you have completely cleansed, right? So that stage is the stage of what you would call, you can be in the nirbija samadhi state, where you're always connected, because there are no more additional programs for you to expend other than the program of asmita, that is me, the experiencer, right? So this is the so these are the 2 stages described in chapter 1. Whereas on the other hand, the state of being in that samprajñātah state can only come when you go and ask and you get all the questions and your Atma Vidya increases. So when the Atma Vidya is at a very high level, you also realize that you are only an instrument of the cosmic flow. So as a result of which, reactivity, everything will go away. That enables you to be in that state all the time. In chapter 4, there is a term used called the Dharma Mega Samadhi. What happens is, when you reach a state where you're able to be connected all the time, and you have purified yourself of all the programs that react, the raga dvesha, you have overcome the raga dvesha and the abhinivesha, but the only thing that is remaining is the asmita. And in that kind of a state, what is happening for you is, you have been born in this body to fulfill a cosmic role. So whatever are the cosmic role you need to fulfill, you fulfill that. And that state of fulfilling your karmas for which you are born as an observer without reacting. And this is the concept that you hear of karma yoga from the other traditions, from Bhagavad Gita and all of that. When you're in that state, then you're simply letting all the remaining programs expend themselves. And then that takes you into the state of the complete nirbija samadhi state. So I guess I pointed the number of levels of samadhi over here, as well as I pointed to you that the highest level of Atma Vidya, unless you ask, it will not come to you. So the question you asked is there anything higher than samadhi? So there are different levels of samadhi. So the highest level of samadhi is when you have complete Atma Vidya and you're able to, you realize that you're only instrument of the cosmic flow. And when the body drops, at that state, the final outcome is one of two outcomes. One is, in the highest state of Atma Vidya, people will develop a sense of complete surrender to God. God, you have made me to fulfill the karma, so whatever you want, let me let this body flow and fulfill that purpose. And the mind, you're always connected to God. When everything falls and the body falls, but the connection into God does not fall from your mind, then in which case you remain in a subtle vibration form as what is called Chana Pratiyogi. Whereas on the other hand, if all the programs are gone and you have no attachment even to God, you have forgotten about all of that, then in which case everything disappears. So there is no vibration or entity remaining that identifies you anymore. And that is the second state in which of complete moksha or release that is explained in the Yoga Sutras. So is there something higher than Samadhi? I've taken you all the way to liberation. So that's where, okay.
Thank you, Dr. Rajanji. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Any other questions? I thought there were a lot of questions about gurus.
I have another, and that was my question next. Is it okay to ask?
Yeah, we have exactly 5 minutes. Go ahead.
So, I mean, you were talking about God now. How about worshipping Sadgurus like Sai Baba, Shirdi Sai Baba, Bhagavan Ramana Maharishi, and where does it fall? Like, is it okay to worship them, or I don't know how to put it. Like,
what is the meaning of worship?
Meaning of worship is praying, not asking, like without asking for anything, you just worship, surrender to them and worship them.
Oh, so a key component of worship is connecting into them, right?
Right.
So if you go into any kind of ritual worship thing, you can never worship without what is called doing avahana. That is, invoking, right? So what happens is, the Yoga Sutra explains that if you invoke a pure soul within you, your own meditative connectivity can be enhanced. That is one type of meditation. This is there in the first chapter.
Yes.
Okay. So the thing is basically the sense in terms of the word guru is not used for in the Yoga Sutra language. In the Yoga Sutra, this language, God is the only guru. There is no other guru. You call these people as Sadgurus, that is your definition. That is not the Yoga Sutra definition. Okay? So what happens is, the in the case of the concept of the Yoga Sutras, any elevated soul who helps others to experience their higher spiritual nature, or lead them into the spiritual experience, all these souls who do that are simply instruments of God's will, and it is God's will that makes them do that for people. So they don't do it by their own will. It is only because of God's will they act as instruments to help others. And so from that sense, they are not gurus. It is God is the guru who makes them do it. They have a duty to do. That's why they do it. Does that give any clarity to you?
Yes. But that means we can worship them.
See,
Or should we worship the
if you get
unmanifest
into
divine?
that zone of worshipping, it should be a temporary phenomenon of being able to connect into them so that you can use their purity of their chitta to have higher experience in meditation. That is about all. Okay? Whereas on the other hand, if you stick to them everlastingly, you will never progress in your yoga and reaching the highest state. You'll be limited by whoever they are. Right? Now, I'm going to say something a little shocking for you. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
What I'm going to tell you is that even the concept of fixation into somebody like Shri Krishna Bhagavan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Will limit you.
Mm.
The only way in which you can go beyond all of these is when you go to the state of nirguna, that is beyond quality and concept and form. The true state of the higher reality is outside vibration. Everything that you see in name and form is from the vibration of Prakriti. I probably confused you, Uma, but ask another question.
That was it. I kind of understood.
Okay.
I think the question was, why are we worshipping all these gurus? That was her original question when she asked me. Then I said, who made them this? Who started worshipping them? It is people who started. There is nothing from above which said, oh, go and worship them.
Exactly.
So I went back to the same sutra on gurus. So it is very difficult to digest that sutra for many. For 99% of the people, it's very difficult to digest. Only a few can digest that.
Yes.
It's very hard and probably harsh too.
But the thing is, you see, Uma, for people who are beginning, whichever way in which their faith draws them is a good beginning step. Having faith and having focus is a good way to begin the spiritual quest. But then at some point in time, when there is a higher level of maturity, you need to get yourself beyond that.
Understood, Dr. Rajanji. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Oh, it's 6:55 and time for our daily yoga class to switch to the other Zoom session.
No, I'm okay. If you have any questions for till all the way till for another 4 minutes.
Okay.
Just a follow up. I know it came. I was reading through our chat group in this group, Dr. Rajan. One of the things I read is Priya was talking about Krishna mainly saying, I am beyond karmas. Is that? So that leads to the other question where you said, while I was reading, I was also processing the chronological sequencing, Yoga Sutras, and then Veda Vyas coming back after that is the Mahabharata. Was there a newer revelation or it was not really said correctly?
Say that again. The one critical thing that you said is that Krishna said he is beyond karmas, right?
Yeah, that's something not that I read, but it was in the group chat I here posted by one of our member, which caught my attention. That's why I was to clarify.
Yeah, she quoted that sloka where Krishna says that he is not born out of karmas,
Yeah.
And so that's what Dr. Rajan would say, that the avatara principle is different. Anyway, go ahead, Dr. Rajan.
Yeah. So what is your question, Sundar? Again, say it for me again.
So was that like when I saw that, like I was also thinking about the timing which you established, which we know Yoga Sutras was ahead, and maybe it was a later revelation that Patanjali Muni wasn't experiencing, which came into play. Is that is that a possibility, or it is purely a misconception?
I think it's a misconception.
Okay.
The thing is, you see, what happens is Krishna cannot make the statement that he is fully beyond outside the role of the outside karma. Okay. Now, you might have also heard some people say that because in the previous Janma, in the form of Rama, he had killed Vali hiding behind a tree. So that was the reason when Krishna died, he took an arrow in his leg, and that's how he died. He was this thing. You probably have heard that story, right?
Right.
The thing is, you see, and the concept of avatara is to put you on the right track. Okay, avatara is not about about somebody who is supremely wise. Okay, who is fully realized. I cannot claim Krishna was 100% realized. If you can tune into souls, you will find that, the Narasimha Avatara was far beyond Krishna in Atma Vidya. Okay?
Okay.
So we have to be very careful. We can only say Krishna was an extraordinary yogi, and learning from Krishna is a wonderful way to begin one's spiritual journey.
I think it's
Thank you.
7 o'clock. So thank you, Dr. Rajan. We will have another session when you have time.
Absolutely. Now it's time for me to begin. So let's begin with 3 ohms. I'm on the other computer.
Okay. Thank you. Namaste. We begin with the chakra vibrations. So bring the awareness to the perineum and pressing on the little finger, we begin with Lam. 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 Release the fingers, continue. Lam. Lam. Bring the awareness an inch or so above the perineum, and focusing there, we do Vam, pressing on the ring finger.
Sometimes we are not able to hear you, Narayan. I don't know. Voice.
Okay. I'm going to disconnect from this computer. That way, the bandwidth is better. So I'll take leave of all of you. Okay. Namaste. I'm on 2